I always swore I'd never move to Sheffield. I'd never live here. It's a dirty place, and who would want to? And so I consider myself not so much born and bred, but reborn and bred here, because I've been reborn in Sheffield. So I went to Paris just to see what would happen. And Toby used to come on the train from here to St Pancras to Gare. So I just sort of think Paris to Sheffield, port-à-port. And I also think that I like to rebrand Sheffield as the Paris of the North, because it has so many parallels, and people dispute this, but I've lived in Paris for 2 years and I'm telling you it definitely is. So when I came back, my main question was, after having lived in Paris where there's a baker on every other street and they're open 7 days a week, and if they're not, the one round the corner is, so they kind of take it in turns, and they're open from 6 in the morning till 9 at night, and they bake bread 4 times a day, because who would want 2-hour-old bread with your lunch? I mean, it's unbelievable. So I just thought, I got home and when I went to Paris, I thought, oh, the bread's great. But actually I became really, really snobbish about the bread in about a month. And I'd walk past a bakery and go, oh, it just smells so bad. And I'd walk miles to the very best bakery. So I now could tell you the 10 best bakeries in Paris. And I happened to be lucky enough to live near to one. So that was an amazing experience. And when I came back, I just thought, where am I going to get bread from? Where will I get it from? Now, we happen to be really lucky in Sheffield because we've got the Artisan School of Food just a stone's throw away, and all those bakers they're training are just spilling out onto the streets of Sheffield and opening artisan bakeries left, right and centre. So we're completely ruined in terms of we can get fantastic bread. But we can also not always get to those bakeries. They're not round everybody's corner. And so I started to think, right, I've got to make it. And I became obsessed. So I was making different types of bread, 4 a day. I was having to sell it because I had so much bread, no person could eat that much bread. I very quickly learned quite a lot about myself, actually, in making bread. That impatience does you no favours in anything, really. And being in the moment and going with the flow often gets you much better results. And it was so exciting to have what really is wallpaper paste in a bucket turn into something like that is magical. When you get it out of the oven, the only time I've been, in fact I don't even know if I was that proud, when I had 2 children, when I gave birth, I think bread kind of takes it a bit above that, because it's like, oh my god, there's another one, and it is like it's born out of the oven. So I was completely obsessed with bread, and I kept sending my brother photographs 3 times a day of this amazing bread. He was going, for fuck's sake, stop sending me pictures of bread, it's the same loaf. I mean, it's not the same loaf, it's a different loaf. So I just became this obsessive, and I think, as you probably know, when you do something that's really worth doing, you do need to be obsessed. You need to be so motivated to do it that I think, being creative people, you're very lucky when you get up in the morning and you do that thing that you've got a compulsion to do. There isn't really a choice, you've got to do it. So I have to make bread, and it's not a bad state of mind to be in. When I was in Paris, I also started a secret supper club, which was a little fantasy of mine. I mean, basically, if anybody thinks here, give up a job and go and live in Paris for 2 years, do it, because it's amazing. People offer you jobs like on the street, you're just walking along, they go, are you English? Would you like a job? And it's just easy to live in Paris. It's like getting into a warm bath. You just lie back and relax and it all happens. But when I was there, I started a secret supper club, which just became huge. And I was featured in Le Monde magazine, and loads of people wrote about it, and it was hugely secret, obviously, so people didn't know when they were coming, what they were eating and all of that. So I really got into cooking for other people, and I called my supper club New Friends Table, because I think the world's full of new friends, you just haven't met them yet. And the ones that you have got, you might want to just clear them out every now and again and just find the new ones, because you just get worn out. So I did that, and when I came back, I actually go back to Paris occasionally and still do New Friends Table. But this idea of the table, the table's the thing. For French people, When they get married, they don't buy a TV, they don't buy a bed. The first thing they buy is a table. The table is the most important thing. And whether a table is, to me, just a little square tablecloth on the ground, or a packet of sandwiches with a few people gathered around, that is a table. Sharing food is really, really important. And the word companion comes from the Latin companis, which means somebody who shares bread with another person. And as soon as you do that, you're their friend, as we know today. Yeah, that'll come to the. Can you hold on to that, because I'm not at that point yet. When you go abroad, what you notice is the bread. When you go on holiday, when you travel, you notice their bread. It's different from your bread. And when you leave your country, diaspora miss their bread, and they take it with them. Sometimes it's biblical, it's manna food from heaven. It comes down, there it is. It makes you who you are. So 3 years ago, we organised a festival in the amphitheatre. I had a project called Sheffield Born and Bred, and there are 126 languages spoken in Sheffield at any one time, and all of those cultures have a bread. It may not look like a bread to us, it may be more like a pancake, like the farinata, which is made of chickpea flour, but it's a staple. It's something you mop gravy up with, basically. And it's the thing that is on the table every day. Whatever else you're eating, it's there. And I'm old enough that when I was growing up, my granddad used to make us eat 2 slices of bread and butter before we had our tinned strawberries, because we only had 3 strawberries each in a dish. And we had very beautiful dishes, moulded, gorgeous, in green and pink. They looked amazing. But you just got 3 tinned strawberries. So if you wolf those down, they're gone. So you eat 2 pieces of bread and butter first, and then you're not so fast to eat your strawberries. So it's really partly gone out of our culture. When I was in France, I did a Christmas lunch for French people before Christmas. I was teaching kids, so I wanted to show them what Christmas lunch in England was like. And they were like, "Where's the bread?" I was like, "We don't have bread. We have bread sauce, but no bread." But they went out to the bakery. They could not eat that lunch without a baguette on the table. It's impossible for them to do that. And in Hungarian and in several other languages, the word for bread is life. So, today, your reaction today is really interesting, because people are very excited by good bread. And where's he gone? Where's the guy gone? Where's the guy gone? You? Me? Yeah. So, what's your name? Jack. When Jack arrived, and he's a graphic student, illustration, beg your pardon, said straight away, "Oh, I make bread." And the thing is about bread, it makes people like you. I'm sure they liked you before, Jack, but they didn't like me much. So it makes you popular. People love bread, and people love people who make bread. And being a baker has never been a cooler thing to be. People are giving up perfectly good jobs to become artisan bakers. So, what's the history of bread? Basically, grain, wheat as we know it now, was grass. And Toby will tell you the bit of information that he's better at telling you now, because he's reading a book called Sapiens. Just give me that snippet about cooking.
Well, when there were multiple human species around, because of course Homo sapiens is the only one left, we exterminated all the others. One of the things that gave us huge competitive advantage was the fact that we cooked, that we used fire to process the food. And in doing that, if you take how a chimpanzee feeds now, it takes 5 hours to get the same amount of energy that we will get from in 40 minutes, because we can cook grass, we can cook grain, we can convert meat into a new product that gives your big brain the energy it needs. So it's really, really important. We haven't got a big enough brain to stop those blowing everywhere, but we did have a big enough brain to convert grains and meat into high energy to feed our big brain.
So, going towards the theme of survival, that when he was talking about that, because I don't read, I'm too tired to read, I just go to bed and sleep, but Toby reads and then passes me snippets of knowledge, and I was like, that's amazing, because basically we discovered fire, and we cook something, and it enabled us to grow and our brain to develop faster, and we survived. Out of all those other species, we survived. But I think I was listening to the Reith lecture the other day, and the quote I remembered from that was history is something we carry inside. And that really struck a bell with that, because I thought, why do we joke about, men and their barbecues? Why do we get so excited about having a candle in the house? Why do we like a live fire? Why are we attracted to this, which is really dangerous, but we've enclosed it and we've made it safe? And I think there's something deep, 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 deep down seeded inside our brains that clicks when we see fire. That thing of cooking something with fire. I've got an induction hob. It's fantastic, but it's not very exciting. Fire is really exciting when you cook with fire. And you also need skill to cook with fire. You don't want to burn it, getting that to the right temperature today. I mean, you've come along here thinking, so easy, baking bread in an oven. It's a nightmare, let me tell you. Because not only have you got to get the dough to the right point before it flops, you've also got to get the fire to the right point at the same time. And it's difficult enough if you're a professional baker. If you're just an amateur like me, it's far more difficult. So I think it clicks with us, this fire idea. It's a really important thing. And the other thing that I really think that bread is important for is your hands-on idea. Okay, so a lot of you are all obsessed with screens. You're stuck to screens a lot of the day and your thumbs are doing this and all of that. And so am I. But sometimes your brain is really shouting the whole time about this stuff and your eyes are doing that, and you need this calm. Some of you will do yoga, or you'll do meditation, or you'll draw, or you do something else. So for me, bread does that. And I think bread lies somewhere between life drawing and massage. And I think when you're looking at bread, you see shapes that you just want to draw. They're just so involving, really. They draw you in. But then you've also, at the same time, I was listening to a programme yesterday about life drawing on the radio. I'm painting a house at the moment, so I listen to a lot of Radio 4. And she said she really wants to touch the life model. Obviously you can't do this unless you're related to the life model, but you do want to touch, and you're never allowed to in life drawing classes. You can just draw, but really what you want to do is go around and feel everything. And I tell you what, that bread is so lively, the dough for that I left it in the fridge. When I got it out and started folding it, it's like a bum, it's like a buttock, it's like a thigh, it's like a stomach, it's like a breast. It's the feel of those things. And that is really exciting, to be making that and feeling that every day. It just feeds something inside you that's really important. It's using that other half of the brain that most of the time we're not using. I think it's really important, as this is recognised all the time now. Everybody's talking about making, city of making, all of that. Making stuff is really, really important, and using your hands is really, really important. So it brings me to doing things as well slowly. Just slow the fuck down. Because everybody's like, I've switched my phone off. I was on WhatsApp because I was doing the festival. I can't bear it. It's just boing, boing, boing. And I'm having days where I'm not looking at my phone at all, which is excruciating. It's like giving up coffee. But I think we need periods in our lifetime when we're going to slow down and just stop everything else and just focus on this beautiful, beautiful thing that's just growing and it's alive. That's the other thing. I think the Holy Trinity for me is cheese, bread and wine. So they're all live, living foods. And somebody told me, who's an expert on fungi, that the DNA of yeast is closer to human DNA than it is to plant DNA. Closer to animal DNA, I beg your pardon, than plant DNA. Now once you know that you're not mad when you've got 11 and you actually think of it as a real person, and you actually look at its mood and you care about it and you fret about it and you don't want to go on holiday because you don't want to leave it. All of those things make sense when you know that. And also when your partner throws away the leaven that you've been 4 years developing, and you almost split up over it. That makes sense as well. He's keeping his head turned, he's not looking. So, year of making last year, I thought it would be a great idea because basically I've always wanted to build one of these ovens. So I thought it would be a great idea for Friends of Sheaf Valley Park to get a grant. We got a £500 grant. What did that pay for? It paid for the kiln-fired bricks, which are made in Sheffield at a refractory, and it paid for things like the peel and the sand that we needed. And so we had 3 Sundays, 36 people on each day, sometimes different people, kids, aunts' kids. We took all that stone at the bottom, came from a house further up, we brought it down by wheelbarrow, and honestly, everyone was like this with the wheelbarrows, and you start to think, hang on a minute, we're just moving this stone, we haven't quarried this stone. We're not the guys who 150 years ago on Claywood Quarry here dug it out of the ground and shaped it. We're just the guys who picked it up off the floor. And suddenly you start to realise, doing something in a really low-tech way, how bloody hard it is to do stuff with your hands. And you appreciate, you know, this whole house, people, men, shape those stones. It's just incredible. So we got those, we made a sand dome, all the instructions are on here. I can email you the instructions if you'd like them. And then we got the clay out of the ground, which we had to test how much clay was in it. It should be about 25% clay. And then we added sand to that. We got the kids with their bare feet and wellies on a big sheet here, sprayed it all with water, got them stamping it, so they made it into a really nice, mushy, malleable clay. We made clay balls, we built the wall, and over a big dome of sand with some wet newspaper. And then we put straw into it for insulation, and we put that on. And then we made a door, and we made a hole for the door, and then we had to wait while it dried out. And we had terrible weather after we made it, so we had to wait about a week, and then we took that off, and we had to take a little bit of sand out every day and fire it, and it was a huge, huge task. 30 odd people for 3 days, so that's over 100 people for a day, if you imagine that took to build that thing. I'm just about to build one myself, but a much smaller one, but I know now what it takes. And then on the last day, I woke up Italian in the morning, and so we put a long table up here with white tablecloths, and people arrived with salads and food and sardines, and we made pita breads all day long in this oven. Okay. And everybody, that's it. And we did it in black and white just so it looks so great. And we had a big community meal out here for about 70 people. I'm just going to send his phone out. Do you want to take his phone? And so it was a really fulfilling event because people not only made the dough and they made the bread, they made the oven that made the bread. And in fact, the wood over there was donated by a guy who was chopping a tree down. And so people came from the group and chopped the wood, because wood is cheap when it's like that, but it's the processing that costs the money. And so we also did another event at the end of the summer called Knead and Squeeze. And that was because we've got apple trees growing in this park. So we gathered the apples, we got an apple juicer, a squeezer. What are they called? Apple press, that's it. And 5 of us made sourdough pizza base, and people brought their own toppings. But as I kept saying to people on the day, it quite upset me really, because people were like, yeah, we're going to throw all this stuff on. We've got pineapple, and all this stuff that shouldn't even be near me at all. And I kept saying it's all about the dough. It's all about the dough. Whereas most pizza manufacturers will tell you it's all about the toppings. Forget the toppings. It's all about the dough. And people suddenly went, oh my God, this dough tastes incredible. Well, of course it does, because it's being cooked at 450 degrees in a wood-fired oven. But not only that, it's made from a leaven that's come out of the sky. You know, the yeast has just flown into that jar and made the wild yeast. And also, it's developed over 5 days. It's got an amazing flavour. It's got a tang, and it's crisp. And so that was a real eye-opener. But the most exciting thing of the day was people loading their own pizza into the fire. Because Toby's like getting that going now. It should go white on the inside once it's hot enough. And then you push the ash back to the side, and then you can bake the pizzas in the middle. And they cook like 90 seconds, really, very, very quick. I mean, there's a few wood-fired pizza people in Sheffield now, so it's not so unusual. But it was amazing. People were so excited about loading it and getting it out, because when you use the peel, to be honest, it's not that easy. You kind of, you go, right, I can do this, and you kind of shove it in, and some people like throw it to the back, and then other people, it's just a little tilt and bring it out, and getting it out again, they panic because they're going to lose it into this fire. And it is a really kind of Dante's Inferno. You know, we know from the news what's just happened. Fire is so frightening. It's so petrifying. It's a thing of nightmares, and yet it's the most incredible thing to work with as well. And in fact, Irena is a friend of ours, and we've stayed at her house in Italy, which has it was a mill, and then it had a fire at the side, and so people used to bring their flour to be milled, and then they could actually bake bread at the same time. And we were idiots when we lit that fire, because we thought, it'd take a couple of hours like a barbecue. I've seen since an Italian family doing it on YouTube. It takes 3 days to heat that fire, and then you have to have everything ready. You have to have all your tarts and everything. So we've got a falling oven now. So it started very hot last night. It dropped to bake the bread, which is about 240 degrees for French bread, 220 for normal bread. We cooked the soccer in a slightly hotter oven at 300. So now Toby's getting it hot again, so we've got some pita bread dough that we could cook some pittas in 30 seconds. And then if we let it go down, later on I could be cooking a quiche, a fruit tart, and then overnight I could put meringues in it. And often what I do is put some wood in there, and we've got kiln dried wood for the next time that we use it. So in fact, you know, when you get it going, there's a hell of a lot you can cook. You can cook for a week really in it. But what I realised about doing the bread oven and getting people together to do it was people responded to it in a way that it's quite hard to get them to respond to other things. You know, we've had a festival. It's hard work getting people to come to a festival. But actually people will come for bread. You said people like you. You know, you've become really popular when you make bread.
People request things as well.
People request things.
Let's do that.
Yeah, so already this lady here said to me, do you sell this normally? And it's just like people are really into it. They're really pleased. I'm a member of the Real Bread campaign, and there's some postcards over there, and on this board on the other side you'll see a list at the top of all the ingredients that supermarkets put into bread. So really what I think is important for our survival is to resist the food processing that goes on, and bread is the most important item of that. They're allowed to lie to you about what's in bread. You know, you go into the supermarket and that lovely bread section that looks like a bakery. Oh, let's have some freshly baked bread. If you try and find anybody to ask what the ingredients are in that bread, because it's not labelled, it's open, you'll be shocked, I guarantee. And there are things in it that are actually made from things like feathers and pig's hair. So it's shocking once you start to delve into it. But what's more shocking is that now they're allowed still, and it's just gone to court, they're still allowed to say that it's artisan food when it's not. It's chilled in a factory somewhere else, half baked, brought in on a lorry, you know, finish the bake off in the little supermarket. Nobody really cares what's in it. Nobody cares how long it's been proved for. And the longer it's proved for, the less yeast you need. So if you think of a triangle with time, water and yeast, the more time you have, the more you can reduce the amount of yeast that you use. So if you want to make a bread in an hour, you can. Just shove loads of yeast in it, make it quite wet and put the temperature on. But if you want really a development of that flour, then give it time, put less yeast in, chill it down for a bit, and really experiment with those 3 points on that triangle. So I'm coming to an end now. Where is she? There. Are we all right? Yeah. Also there was a parish oven on this road at some point, and parish ovens existed all over the place. when you go on holiday in North Africa or in Eastern Mediterranean countries, you often find a community oven where people will bring their bread in to be baked by somebody who's making his bread anyway, and you're just making use of the resources of the village really, and making use of the wood. And there was one on this road. So the idea of this is now that if any of you would like to get a group of people together to come and make bread and bake it here, you're welcome, okay? You just have to tell us, and we have to be here because we don't want our house burning down, but you're welcome to use it. It's an open use facility really, and you can do anything from pizzas to bread baking to meringues if you want to. I also thought that when we did it, people would get the idea to go and make a bread oven somewhere else, because Toby and I were going to go on a course. It was 140 quid to go on a course to find out how to make a bread oven, and then we were going to disseminate that information to everybody else. And then I went on YouTube and thought, don't need to go on a course, thank you, I've got YouTube. So I found a really, really good woman in America, and I took some of her ideas. I've got a book on it that I've been reading for years, and eventually I thought, do you know what, there's only a few things you need to know. And there's actually, when scientists went round and looked at all the bread ovens in Eastern Mediterranean countries and North Africa, there's one thing that they found they all had in common, and that is the ratio between the door height, the diameter, and the height of the dome inside. And all that information is on there. So the dome height, I think, is 75% of your internal diameter, and then the door is 67% of the height of your dome. As long as you do that, you're laughing, it's going to be all fine. And you're also trying to keep the heat in as much as possible. When you make a pizza, you're losing a lot of heat. When you put the door on, you're keeping it in. And I also, another piece of kit I bought, which is really fantastic, is that infrared gun, so that you can see what the temperature is. And sometimes it just says high, and that means don't go anywhere near it, don't put anything in here. And when I put the tray of oil in, last time I did this for the farinata, I put it in and it just went into flames. And I panicked because I went, oh, I've got a pan fire, and I thought, what do I do? And I just leave it. It just goes out eventually, and pull it out again because it's all contained. It's very safe. So the Talmud says, it's got a whole bit on this, but the last line is, no community, no bread. But I actually think no bread, no community. And my question is then, what can you do? Because I think at this point in our lives, community is the absolute key to our survival. There is nothing else we can do more than be part of a community that will enable the world to move forward in a positive way. And so what can you do about that? First thing you can do is read labels and ask, what is in this bread? And when you get your answer, you then need to make a decision and a choice. And either say, my body's a temple and I'm not putting that in here, or say, yeah, that's fine, I don't mind eating all that chalk. That's fine, because they have to put chalk in flour in this country unless it's wholemeal. It's disgusting, you'll be shocked. Join the Real Bread campaign. Anybody can join. It's £10 or £15. I can't remember for a year. You get, honestly, you'll be like, oh, I can't believe they told me that now. You'll be bread fanatics in no time. If you don't make bread already, have a go at making bread. Email us on there. Our address is there. And tell us if you'd like to come on a bread course, because I run free bread courses or donation bread courses. Have a go at making some bread, and if it's crap, still bake it, and then look at it and think, I have no idea why that's like that, and ask me and I'll tell you why it's like that. It's the most satisfying thing you can do. I still make mistakes. I've got a loaf up there that's not very good. Ant has got a loaf which he's like a bit ashamed of, but I don't think it was his fault. It was my fault today that went wrong. We know why. Cold? We know why, really. But Ant is a perfect example. He's my exhibit B today. Do you just want to say briefly what?
Yeah, sure. So what happened? Oh right, okay. So I did a bread course with Kim, which was cool. And it was I got a bit of sourdough starter before it got thrown away. And so I kept that going, and I'd been making bread. My aim was to, after finding out about the ingredients and looking into it a little bit more, and thinking, this isn't great. You know, I get that we've got a loaf of bread and we buy it for our kids, it's gonna last a week, and it's all even and it's nice and square and we can make new sandwiches, but this isn't ideal really. So I thought, what if I can get into making bread? So I started experimenting. It took me quite a while to get it right. I started making round ones, you know, like the round loaves, sourdough loaves, but ultimately I wanted to get it to the point where my kids would want to eat it for lunch. So I've got 4 boys, so what I've got is this little loaf tin, and started experimenting, and eventually kind of hit on the right kind of temperature for my oven, the right kind of way to make the bread, to make the dough. And now I remember when my son, my 15-year-old Ben, came in and said, "Dad, your bread is amazing," and he's not particularly full of compliments for me, so that was a big thing, and all of them like it. So now, before I go to bed, I'll slice off 8 little bits of slices of loaf, put it in a bag, ready for the morning, and they eat that now for their lunches.
And I think that's the thing, because you're a breadwinner, but you also put bread on the table. These phrases we use all the time, and I think it's important because even people on really low incomes can actually make bread, but they may not have an oven to put it in. So that's why a community oven is really important. So once you've got into making bread, if you would like to make a bread oven, that's the thing.
Yeah, that's a lot better looking than that one. Right?
It's just like life drawing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so, and basically, this is Sharu here, who, did you make parathas in this before? Yeah. So anybody can make anything in it, basically. But if you want to make a bread oven, we'll give you advice, we'll come and help you, we'll give you a hand. You can I'll send you all that information. If you email us, we can send it to you. And hopefully you'll take it out there and you'll spread the bread word. Bread in my backyard, whatever, there's all these, you get obsessed with kind of making phrases about bread. But all I can say is, whether you're making a loaf or whether you make a bread oven, make it and they will come. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kim. That was amazing. I've been listening to